You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Seventh Sanctum with Kerry Ann, only on Parasearch UK Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Seventh Sanctum. I am Kerry Ann and I am back after a long time away, and I am so excited to be here and sharing a Friday night with you. So welcome to Seventh Sanctum. Like I said, this is Parasearch Radio, the only place you can find Kerry Ann and Seventh Sanctum. I am going to be joined this evening by Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Kerry.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So tonight we're going to be talking about Slender Man, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. A very strange subject, I suppose you could say.
Well, I mean, I've been doing some reading today. I'm not going to lie. I don't know, and I didn't know very much about Slender Man until obviously when he first appeared on the scene within the paranormal field realm, or wherever you want to put it. I was made aware of him, and I kind of read the stories briefly, glazed over it. But more so, it was brought more to my attention when the film came out recently. So I kind of thought to myself, this is quite a fascinating story. Not so much about Slender Man himself and the legend and where he comes from, but the impact that he has had on the people and those that follow him. So I thought to myself, I'm going to do a little bit more reading about this legend, myth, man that is Slender Man, and kind of see what kind of impact he has had, both within the paranormal field and those outside of it. So, we briefly go over the story. There's two kind of angles from this, isn't it? There's the fact that he has been around since the beginning of time, and the fact that he has, or the thing that he's man-made. So, where are you with this?
Well, I think Slender Man, I mean, he is fictional in my opinion, but I think people can see, again, I don't like using this word, maybe a demonic spirit or something along those lines that resembles him. But Slender Man himself, who he is, what he does, etc., I don't think it's like a real thing. I think it's just something people probably can relate to, something that they've seen. I mean, I personally have seen I'm not a medium. I'm sensitive to things purely because I've been doing it for so long now. But I think you can. I've seen things that I could say, yeah, that kind of looks like Slender Man. But I'm not talking about like a very, very tall person with a white face and a suit and tentacles and stuff. Just a tall white spirit, let's say.
Okay, so I think it'd be a good idea to kind of, for those that may not know about Slender Man or where he come from, to kind of talk about the fictional side, the fact that his origins in the fact that he was created. So he was originally created by a guy called Eric. I can't pronounce his last name. Alex, can you?
I'm assuming it's Knudsen.
Knudsen, that would make sense.
Or Knudsen, but you should never. I know I'm going to go slightly off topic, but then again, you shouldn't have had me on the show. You've seen the advert for Knoppers. It's Knoppers. It's not Knoppers. It's Knoppers. The K is silent. Just saying. Sorry. Carry on.
I'm good.
I had to say it. Sorry. It
No,
winds me up.
I'm glad you cleared that up. To be fair,
It's
yeah.
Knudsen, not Knudsen.
Okay, no, so it's Knudsen, Eric Knudsen. So this man created the Slender Man. It was created on June 10th, 2009, and it was on something called Something Awful, like a thread. It was an internet forum. So originally, what happened was, now this is where I find it really fascinating. It resonates a little bit with I mean, those that follow me and have listened to my shows before know I've got a bit of a fascination with the Phillips experiment. So this kind of I can see the connections in its origin somewhat. So it was originally created by this man. He added, it was part of a competition for creating photoshopped images. So he posted the first one, which was of a young girl and the Slender Man, and it had a quote with it that basically said, we didn't want to leave, we didn't want to kill them, but the persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. And they put the date of 1983. Shortly after that, he posted the second one, which was of children and a Slender Man, but it had a library stamp on it. And then it kind of escalated from there, really. So then there was certificate doctor's notes of alleged Slender Man victims. There was newspaper articles. Over a period of time, he'd basically created this whole different platforms of kind of evidence that proved that this Slender Man was real and he was living and he was doing these things. After a while, other people started joining in. So there was a person that started sending in photos that apparently was given to him by his uncle, who was a police officer, who took photos when kids had gone missing at this campsite. There was so much more. By around June that year, there was I think it was 194 pages of evidence of the Slender Man. So if anyone's familiar with the Phillips experiment, they kind of created a persona and a person, and therefore manifested a spirit that also communicated as such. So this is why it resonates somewhat. I feel like they've actually kind of created a whole persona, a personality. They gave credit to something, and I feel like it took on like an entity of itself. And I'm not saying that the Slender Man exists and is real, but I do feel like the manifestation of him has created somewhat of kind of like a hysteria. What do you think?
I would agree. I mean, there's plenty of things on the internet these days that create some sort of hysteria. But I mean, we were discussing this earlier on today. I mean, before years and years and years before you had the internet, go back to I say Romania, but it might be another Eastern European country, where there was the hysteria about vampires, and apparently the bodies of the dead were coming back to life and feeding on livestock and cursing people, and these people would die, etc. And people got hysterical to the point where they were digging up bodies and they were putting stakes through their hearts, and they believed it was actually happening because when they dug the bodies up, the bodies were bloated and blood was coming out of their mouths, which today we know as that's just regular decomposition. But there was hysteria going around at that point, and today, in the modern age, we have the same similar thing, but it all stems from things people see on the internet, and and people tend to get fixated on things, and I think that's where Slender Man comes. I think that's the true horror of Slender Man is the fact that it has this sort of mental effect on people, particularly young teenagers who get deeply into this story. I mean, we already know that there's been attempted murders and indeed murders by people because they were obsessed with Slender Man, and I think that's where the true horror comes from.
Yeah, I agree. When you was talking briefly, you said about the communities in Romania, and like the fact that, you know, I know we spoke about it before about them being a small community and kind of having that kind of hysteria. The thing is, we're the world is made so much smaller now because we have the internet. So what would be on a more smaller scale and could be quite contained within one community, it now spreads quite quickly, like a bit like a wildfire. So what could usually be contained and kind of like maybe dealt with in a more kind of rational way, how can you control that? How can you control something that's like worldwide when it comes to these kind of myths and the impacts they have, like you said, on young children? I mean, you said about you know, so they call it like a sickness, I think you said, or illness. Is that what you said? You did say that, didn't you? I'm not making it up in my head.
What about? Sorry. What's an illness?
About, I'm sure. Sorry, my brain's wandering. But the reason why you triggered something in my head, because they do say that those that become close to Slender Man or research Slender Man or want to have some kind of interaction with Slender Man come down with slender sickness. And
I refer to it as a fixation.
Okay, yes. So it causes paranoia and mania and all sorts. So there's what could already be an already disposition that someone has now is also now being given validation to the fact that they're getting close to Slender Man. They could already have paranoia. They could already have these in place, and now they're going to attribute it to him.
And
so
you've got to think as well. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's usually like youngish teenagers that are getting so caught up with it. I mean, that's such a confusing time of life for people, and that's usually sort of the time when mental illness starts to show, you know, its first sort of symptoms, and I think it just creates like a nasty cocktail in the head, I suppose, and yeah, it just leads to people doing really stupid, strange things that you wouldn't expect people to do.
Yeah, and I think as well, so it's good. It's also good to, you know, at that stage, people are trying to find their identity and they're trying to fix. You at that time, you feel quite lost, I think, and you try and find your we say tribe now, but psychologically, we have to identify with different groups, and if we don't identify with different groups, then we find something that we can relate to. And I think at that age, that's the time when that you're more likely to be susceptible to stronger belief systems and kind of you know, things that might not necessarily be you know, what you would really believe in later life. Well, I say that now. I mean, we're adults now and people believe what they believe in. I think it's difficult when you pair the two, when you pair like adolescence and something that has such a big impact, and not only that, but a sense of belonging, because a part of this Slender Man is that he takes you away to this mansion. So for those that, you know, may not know, is that you come across Slender Man. I mean, me and Alex have found different ways that happens. We found an incantation with, you know, in the film, it's you watch a video, others you call him. There's lots of different ways that they say you can do it, and that he comes, and what you need to do is sacrifice someone that is important to you to him so that he won't kill your family, but then he takes you away to live in this mansion. So, you know, you have these people that might feel like they don't belong, or, you know, at that age, and they haven't got their you know, their group, and they're looking for that, and to have that kind of, you know, connection to something that's so powerful, it's, you know, I just think it's a really kind of, it's a bit of a dangerous cocktail. I mean, we have Kerry Greenaway in the studio. Kerry, what do you think about this?
Oh, turn my mic on. That was a bit earlier than anticipated. No, I think it's... I think you've got it right. There's peer pressure at that particular age in regards to belief systems, but I also think people have made I think entity is too strong a word, but a belief system that they're witnessing or coming across this character, even though it's a media driven, even though it's not real, it's a story. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's quite possible to do. I think the power of the mind is a fascinating thing, and that it's quite possible. So I think when people say they've experienced something, but I think it goes into shadow people. I think when people are out and about and they see a shadow of a person, it's like the logical assumption to jump into, oh, I saw the Slender Man, because it fits the criteria. It fits with what your knowledge is, if you know what I mean. You know, it's a shadow. I saw a shadow. What did it look like? Oh, it looked like the Slender Man. Because the image of a Slender Man, although there's different images set out there from various sources of what it's supposed to look like, it's basically a tall man with a long coat and a hat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, yeah, a very tall man with a white sheet over his face and a rather nice suit.
So if you saw a shadow figure, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a mental jump. So that's my thoughts on it in regards to Slender Man anyway. I mean, I know we've been asked a question in the chat room, which I'm sure we'll come on to later.
Yes, I have seen this. Yeah, Kit asks about any thoughts on Talpus, which is again, my pronunciation could be wrong on that, which is notorious for me. I have poor pronunciation skills, so but from my understanding, it's a little bit what we've already spoken about. So the power of manifestation, which is kind of what we touched upon before when I was comparing, you know, kind of the similarities and the correlations between the Phillips experiment and the Slender Man, in the fact that we can, you know, the amount of energy that was put into the creation of him, the stories that were given to him, the newspaper articles, the doctor's records, the library records, all this was giving, you know, that power of manifestation. And then you have all these different people from all over the world. Again, we talk about, you know, the fact that the world is made a lot smaller now because of the connections that we have. I mean, me and Alex were saying that we have friends in America that we might be closer to than we have, you know, than friends in the UK. And that's only because, you know, through the power of, you know, the internet. So the world's a lot smaller. So we have not just a small community of people that are fearing the big bad wolf that's in the woods. We've got a whole world of people that are giving power to this entity, that's giving stories to this entity, that's giving validation to who this person actually is and what it's capable of. So I kind of am with Kit in a way that I feel like this is giving it a great energy. And if there is a Slender Man, which I don't want to be proven either way, I'll put that out there. If there is a Slender Man, I do feel that it's the creation of the energy that's been put into it since 2009. That's my opinion on it, though. So I'm with Kit a little, you know, with what he's saying. But
I mean, something I want to know is why Slender Man is so prominent in like people's minds and why it's become such a major thing. Because I mean, I don't know of, I mean, people trying to commit murder or indeed committing murder because of, you know, Freddy, what's his name? Freddy Krueger. You know, I mean, you know, that I don't remember. I've never heard of anyone killing people because of Freddy Krueger or because of Jason or it the clown or whatever you want to call him.
I mean,
but Slender Man, you know, has somehow become this major thing, and it's just, you know, caused a lot of problems. And I think in a way that's why, I mean, personally for me, the film was quite toned down, and I think that's probably a reason why. I think the studio or producers or whatever wasn't brave enough to push it, because they were fearing probably the repercussions of doing that because of who Slender Man is.
Can I jump in on this one? Sorry. Can I jump in on this one? I think it's because if you look at mental health illness, and you look at people that talk about schizophrenia, it's always somebody's told me to do it. Somebody, that being the key word. When you look at the other characters that you've named, although they're people, they're caricature people, whereas the Slender Man isn't. It's kind of faceless. So if you're looking at mental health illness and you've got somebody telling you something to do, they're not going to have the caricaturistness in their face like you would Freddy Krueger or the It character or, you know, the others that are out there. And that's why the Slender Man has captured that side of people's mentality more so than the others.
I think that you've actually, do you know what, saying that you've okay, so there's anonymity. Right, okay, so the fact that this person is a faceless person, and also as well, it is noted that this person can take on this I say person, Slender Man, can take on the face of many fears. The fact that he is essentially faceless does give him an element of anonymity. So the people, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, so I'm sorry, guys. Again, notorious for this. But the people that are following him, it does give them that sense of anonymity. So what it does is relinquish them from any kind of personal responsibility for their actions. So they're more susceptible to do things in a way that they probably wouldn't normally do, because they're not dehumanizing the people that they're hurting; they're dehumanizing themselves. So maybe that's more of a reason why they follow it so much. I mean, I will go back to the fact that Alex said that there was a really famous murder of a young boy, and they said that the two that killed him had been watching horror films before it happened. But that's the only one that I really know of. But what I will say is, I mean, there's lots of there's been lots of experiments in this kind of field about why, what would make people more likely to commit crime if they're, when normally they're not, especially children. These kind of things in children. So you do have the Bobo experiment that does say that if they are in direct contact or have access to some kind of aggression or a displays of aggression in films and like in video games and stuff, they are more likely to act that out. But if you look at the two, so you've got two major cases, or three, sorry. So you have the Wisconsin case, the Ohio case, and you have the one that was based in another country where they killed you had two girls that killed the young girls. Sorry, two girls that killed the young girl. You had the girl that killed or stabbed her mum. Sorry, and then you had another one where the daughter set fire to the house with the mum and the brother in it. And all of them show that they were having direct access to the Slender Man, and one of them created like a whole world in Minecraft for him. Like that's how much they'd put into it. So yeah, I mean, if you look at it that way, then you see that there was something there. Sorry, I was extremely distracted through that.
I mean, you mentioned the two girls in Wisconsin. I mean, just go into that. I mean, they what they did. It was in May 2014, and basically, I'm not naming names, even though I have the names available to me. But these two 12-year-old girls took one of their other friends. They had planned to kill her. I mean, one of their first ideas was to kill her in the public toilets, but what they ended up doing was trying to kill her in the middle of some woods. And what basically happened was one of them held her down and held her legs, while the other one got on top and basically stabbed the girl multiple times. But luckily, the victim survived. She was found by a cyclist probably, hours away from death. And if the cyclist didn't find her, then she probably would be dead by now. Well, obviously, she would have been dead within a couple of hours. But luckily, she survived. But that's what happened in Wisconsin. And as far as I'm aware, they're currently waiting for trial. I can't remember if they've gone to trial or not. I know they were facing up to 65 years in jail.
Yeah, one of them had 25 and the other one had 40 in a mental asylum. That's what they'd been served with, yeah. But, I mean, these girls were really invested into the Slender Man. They really were invested into him. And then the one that stabbed her mum, she is the one that created a complete world for Slender Man. I mean, in Minecraft, the Enderman is meant to be Slender Man. Now, I didn't know this until I did research. I've done my research into it. So, my children play Minecraft. So this is how insidious Slender Man is. I mean, he's in all our homes in one way or another. Because he's
I mean,
in
you can download an actual Slender Man game for Xbox, which I did, and it's terrifying. It really is. I mean, it really screwed. I was like, it was really screwing with my head as it got further in. Like the start is all right, but the further and further in you go, the more it starts to really screw with your head, and you're like, I don't want to play this. It's too much.
But it just shows you though. It does,
and it's out there, you know. It's not like it doesn't ask for. I mean, obviously it asks for your PayPal or details or whatever, but it doesn't ask your age or anything. So anyone can download it as long as they've got the money to do so.
See, this is where it makes me a little bit uncomfortable because you don't realise how much it's been done in such a way that, I mean, it's Xbox, it's PlayStation, it's in movies. There's adaptations of it now in short film. Say it, you know, I mean Slender Man. There's so much out there now that has. I mean, if you look at Slender Man as a whole, when you look at him, I mean, the fact that he's wearing a suit marks authority. The tallness of him marks authority. So it doesn't surprise me that they link him with children, because children are more likely to be susceptible and more kind of conform really to someone that's in authority, and everything about him screams that. The fact that he's faceless as well is terrifying. So not only have you got someone that's in authority, you've also got someone that's absolutely terrifying. So in the face of that, what are you supposed to do? I mean, if you know, it's. I mean,
some of the other cases that have been reported. So a woman in Ohio was attacked by a 13-year-old daughter with a knife, which was put down to Slender Man. A 14-year-old girl in Florida tried to set her house on fire with her mother and brother still inside. And police reported that she had been reading online stories about Slender Man and things like that. Even suicides have been put down to Slender Man. And a Native American tribe described Slender Man as being very similar to a suicide spirit. I think that says so. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's other cultures and stuff who believe in things that are probably very similar to Slender Man.
Yeah, I mean the origins from Slender Man. I mean he's the guy that Eric. He actually said, I say Eric because we're on first name terms now. We call it like that. But not the fact that I can't pronounce his last name. He says that his kind of inspiration was actually from Stephen King books.
It does seem like a very Stephen King kind of thing.
Yeah, he said that's where it comes from. That's where he got his inspiration from. And that's kind of where he kind of created it from. But, you know, who knows? Who knows really? I mean, he does. I personally think that this is a manifestation of a lot of people's time and energy in creating something. I feel like he's got credit for a lot of stuff that maybe he hadn't done. And that because we're in such a you know, the world is so... I say it so many times now, the world's so small, it's just caught like wildfire. I mean, we say these kind of, everything has been based in America. But when I was doing my research for this, one of my friends stepped forward and said that there'd been 2 sightings in Basildon in Essex. And then when we done some research, there were sightings, 3 or 4 sightings in Cannock in Staffordshire. So, and the ones that were in Staffordshire, there was like in-depth kind of descriptions about what happened, and they all say one was in his home, and he was in bed, and he was hovering above him, and then the second one was in a field, and he was hovering off the ground and kind of like went into the air. So these people, you know, saying
that to me sounds like extraterrestrials.
Sorry.
Everything okay?
Go on.
Sorry, I said that when my mic was muted and I hadn't turned my mic off, so they heard me and nobody else did. No. No, it's not extraterrestrials, Alex. I have to disagree with you on that one. I think what it is it's a manifestation of your worst fear. And if one of your biggest fears is something like the Slender Man, which we've said before, conjures up things in your mind, it's like your biggest fear of an anonymous person coming into your home and causing fear, that is more likely. The one in bed could be a sleep paralysis, and because if you're that into Slender Man, it's coming across as Slender Man. The one in the field could just be a hallucination, and it's manifesting in that form.
I would say the ones in Basden definitely are probably related to people taking drugs.
I would definitely not jump to the alien route.
I was just saying it sounded like, someone being abducted,
no,
floating off the ground and stuff.
But even on abduction, there's been a proven evolution between the hagman, the sleep paralysis hag woman thing, right through to alien abduction. I think that you have to look at the mental progression and what we're fed on a daily basis that affects our mental state of what we're manifesting externally. I really think you have to expect that and look at that. Sorry.
I will interject. They have stated... No. I will interject. They have stated that they do feel that the one in the bedroom or the one in bed, they do feel like that's connected to sleep paralysis, and that they have given a full explanation of what they think that possibly is. But they are also open to the fact that there's some phenomena going on that needs some further explanation. Now, Alex's explanation is based on his own experiences and what he's experienced and what his perception of what is going on. This is the thing we need to understand, that this is it's all based on perception. We are all looking at this in a very different kind of stance. I agree with you, Kerry, to a majority of the extent of what you're saying, and I do agree. But I feel like also people's experiences on what they think Slender Man is very unique. It's the basics and the foundations are there. But as you can tell, if you look at the stories, everyone has a different perception. That's why they say, again, you're right, projection of fear. But we also need to be open-minded to the fact that there is something out there that we do not understand and we cannot explain. We are made of energy. That we cannot lie. That's something we can't deny at all. We know that energy never stops. So my belief system is when we pass away, our energy continues. So if we continue as energy and we're able to... What is saying that there isn't a type of energy out there that has that kind of persona or can project itself in that way, however it was created, we can't say for definite. Definitely not. We just don't know what it is, but mental health is a massive factor. And I do feel like we need to be more open-minded with mental health when it comes to phenomena. I do think that, stories are sometimes just stories, and we need to be open to the fact that mental health plays a massive part. These people are still people. They're going through a really crap time. They do really ridiculous stuff, and it can just be down to the fact that they already have these kind of dispositions in place. The fact that they've called it slender sickness as well is what got me, because all you're doing is crediting that further. We've all Googled our symptoms and thought we died 7 days ago. So,
True that.
That these people that think they're having some kind of interaction with Slender Man are going to Google these, and they're going to look up slender sickness, and they're going to think, oh, I'm paranoid, I'm feeling this way, and it's going to validate it. Not that is already in place. I don't know.
The mental health. So I was going to say mental health research has come a long way, since the 1950s. But there's still things that we'll never truly understand because we don't know what it's like to be in that person's head. Schizophrenia, for example. It's not, people confuse schizophrenia with multi-personality disorder, where they're completely different. Multi-personality disorder, you change personalities, you basically become another person. Schizophrenia, you hear voices in your head, and the voices tell you to do things. And for me personally, that sounds very similar to Slender Man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put it out there though. Do you really think that? When you look at what the media, and I'm just asking for opinions now, the media has there's no favours been had here for what they've done and the kind of platform that they've given it, considering the implications that it's caused. I mean, they won't play certain music because they think it has a negative effect on people's mental health and behaviour. Knowing that, I mean, the attempted murders, they happened a few years ago. And now there's a film about it. They've brought it back into the forefront. So, and people are now I mean, I'm talking about it again because this is what's happened and I've watched the film. So I do think that there needs to be a sense of responsibility here on what it's putting out there, considering the impact it's had on young people. I don't know. It's just my opinion.
But I mean, it's very easy for the media to cause a ruckus, especially if the media isn't, let's say, controlled.
So there was a connection that you made, Alex, with Slender Man and Black-Eyed Children. Did you find any more about that?
Do you know what? I didn't look it up. I meant to. Basically, I mean, I'm pretty sure people have spoken about it before, and that's why I thought of it. But I basically theorised that there's a connection between Black-Eyed Children and Slender Man, if they exist, which I don't think they do. But the Black-Eyed Children, children that have been taken by Slender Man, and now they're out in the world doing his bidding. Basically, they're his minions, kind of thing. And actually, in the game on Xbox, one of the levels you basically do get attacked by a girl who is now basically under control of Slender Man, and she has black eyes. So, it is something that's been referenced, if not outright, it's very subtly referenced in this game that you can download on Xbox. But as far as I'm aware, black children have been going up this Black-Eyed Children. Sorry. Oh,
just clarifying that.
Black-Eyed. It's really bad if I didn't say eyed. Black-Eyed Children have been going around. The story of Black-Eyed Children have been going around for years. Mm-hmm. So obviously, it's not something that's just come out of nowhere in the past 10 years like Slender Man has, as far as I'm aware.
Do you know what? I agree. I mean, the reason why I feel like there's that connection between the two is because when I imagine Black-Eyed Children, they're very pale, black clothes, black hair kind of thing. So I can understand. And they're saying as well, the reason why they're doing it is because they're saying that the sightings where the Slender Man is, or the sightings that have happened, are the same places the Black-Eyed Children have been sighted as well. One of two things could be going on. Genuinely, the Slender Man is out there and the Black-Eyed Children are doing his bidding, or the areas in which they're being sighted might be more susceptible to myths and folklore. I mean, because they are connecting Slender Man to folklore because of the way the story's been written, and the fact that like folklore, the story changes all the time depending on the storyteller. Mm-hmm. So there is that connection. So it could be the areas in which, I mean, that would be really quite an interesting, study or, research to actually look at where are these sightings happening and whereabouts, what kind of, environment the people are in. Obviously they've got internet, but I think more rural, do you know what I mean? They're more susceptible to, like folklore and stuff. So it's interesting. Interesting.
I've just double checked as well. Again, because we've had an article about Slender Man and an article about Black-Eyed Children in Living Paranormal magazine before, so I'm going through my old issues. And it says here that Black-Eyed Children, there's been quite a number of accounts of these phenomena, and a reporter from Texas, Brian Bethel, first wrote about them in 1996, but apparently that wasn't the first time they'd been seen. So yeah, that Black Eyed Children definitely predates Slender Man.
Okay. Well, it's still an interesting kind of link, to be fair.
And
I
there's also a someone who Ryan, who wrote the article, also spoke to someone who apparently has witnessed Black Eyed Children before as well, and there's an account where he goes in a bit of information about what he saw and stuff.
I think, yeah, yeah. I just, I don't know. I'm at the point. I mean, I have my opinion, and I've had it from the beginning, and that hasn't changed. But I do think there's just so much to this that you'd never really get to the bottom of anything. Really, you can never. I mean, I was going to say you'd never know either way, but I feel like we do. I just feel like that so much has gone on because of it. But it's still interesting the power that's had over, the media, and how they've managed to pull something. What would be just two photos that were photoshopped. This is reality, guys, as well, right? These are two photos that were photoshopped. This is how it all started. If anything we're going to get from this story is that you can achieve anything as long as you're driven.
And have Photoshop. And have Photoshop.
Yeah. Yes. Because this guy now who created it is everywhere. I mean, there's films, there's books, there's games, there's everything from two photos that were photoshopped.
He has said, Eric Knudsen, he had said that despite the full understanding that Slender was created on an online forum, people still believe and entertain the possibility that he is real, even though he created it. That is something he has said.
This is a pure case, though, of an urban myth or a story that's taken on a life of its own, isn't it? And people have created, like you said right at the beginning, Kerry Ann, people have created that. And it's when you started to talk about the black-eyed children, it just reminded me of a fireside storytelling of the Slender Man. And if it wasn't scary enough, let's add another dimension into that to make it even more scary. Do you know what I mean? It's like joining two urban legends together to create a really super scary story, as if it wasn't bad enough. That's kind of what I was thinking when you were saying that. I'm not overly familiar with the Black-Eyed Children mythology, to be fair, but it just reminded me of that when you was talking. But it just goes to show the power of media, for one, like you said. It also goes to show, I think, we shouldn't underestimate social pressures that are on families and people these days. I mean, you named 3 cases in America that they've cited Slender Man as telling them what to do. But those children could have had mental issues. If it hadn't have been Slender Man, it could have been something else. And I don't actually think that you could blame it. I mean, one of the children in that case, didn't she say she could also talk to a Ninja Turtle as well?
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And went for a term of it. She did it under a term of insanity. I mean, God, if this girl is thinking she's talking to all the cartoon characters out of her life and she's been subjected to something like Slender Man within her home, it's hardly surprising if she had a mental health issue that came out as, her wanting to commit crimes like that because of mental health issues. And I think because of social situation these days, there's a lot more pressure on children and people these days. Mental health issue is on the rise. We shouldn't underestimate that factor. And isn't it the responsibility of parents to make sure that children aren't being subjected to this kind of material?
I'm so glad I don't have that responsibility.
But then this is what I'm saying. Like, my children play Minecraft. Your children play Minecraft. They'll be susceptible to Slender Man.
Well, that's true.
So what my point is, no matter what you're doing, this is so insidious. Even as parents, I had no idea that was the case. If someone said to me your son was playing a game with Slender Man in it, I would be like, no, there's no way. There's no way I'd allow that. But the truth and the reality is, he's been playing Minecraft. It's got Enderman in it. Enderman. How did I not even pick up on that? That's his name. Even the toy of it.
I kind of think it's fat shaming as well. The fact that he's so slim. I'd love for there to be like, you know, the Podgy Man or
wasn't that in Ghostbusters?
Yeah, Slimer. Yeah.
I was thinking the Marshmallow Man.
Stay Puft. Fat bastard man.
But even going back, right, go back with that. Why is being so thin a fear? And that would have been a fear of starvation, a fear of emancipation through being starved through the hard times through winter. And that goes back a long way back. You know, that fear of not having enough food to carry you through the winter. That's a really deep fear, believe it or not, within people, of not having enough to sustain yourself. So somebody who's very emaciated and thin is actually a manifestation, and again, as another manifestation of fear, it's a fear of not having enough to sustain yourself. Whereas if you're a larger person, there's not that fear there, is it? They're a bit cuddly and lovely, aren't they? There's not really a fear there.
I suppose, talking about issues that people have with weight and things like anorexia, bulimia, etc. Disorders that people develop because they don't have enough control in their lives. But with Slender Man, people are given control to him, even though he doesn't exist.
Well, this is a thing.
I'm not really coming up with a theory. I just think that's quite interesting.
But then you got to look at, like you said, like Kerry said, like his persona and his image. Like when you think of a tall, skinny man, you think of the old, nasty man that lives upstairs that threatens kids. You know, you do. you when you think horrible, when you think old and decrepit and nasty, you think of like a skinny, gaunt man. But again, like I said, that you've got the authority there. You've got the fact that they're taller, the fact that his clothing, the fact he's wearing a hat, so really he's kind of hiding his face. We've got all these fears now, especially now when you've got this no hoodie, no hat policy.
He's not always wearing a hat, just you know.
I'm just putting it out there, Alex.
I mean, he should. I reckon. I do feel that his appearance is like not finished unless he has a top hat on.
That's a bit like Jack the Ripper, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I know we're now morphing into Jack.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, Jack the Ripper. You know, they. I think it's just, you know, the top hat just finishes the look off. You know, it's a good look, strong look.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very true. Good point. I just think there's a lot of psychological stuff. I think what he's done is he's gone in there and he's looked at it, whether he has or not, but I feel he has. I think he's just gone in there and just kind of thought of all the different things that could scare the crap out of kids and thought, yeah, that will do. And he's done something really amazing there. And because of that, there is like the reality of it as well. These people have died or injured. You know, these kids have done stuff that they probably wouldn't, maybe have done in other circumstances, but didn't do it in that circumstance. I don't
think you should underestimate the child factor. I mean, if you want to look at the effect, brainwashing, if you want, if you go back in time, the religion was the brainwasher, wasn't it? The devil's going to get you, and that sort of thing. And look at Salem. Look at the witch trials in Salem. You know, if you want to look at it in that way, they were kids accusing other, you know, adult people of being witches and having an effect on them. This is like saying, well, you know, the Slender Man made me do it. Well, you know, she made me do it because the devil told her to. You know,
talking about hysteria and things like that.
Yeah. When you start looking at it in that terms.
Fairness, Salem had nothing on the witch trials over here.
No, that's true. But I'm just looking at the child factor. You know, and the effect of, like, you know, Satan and the devil and the religion and stuff like that had on people, because there was the children factor in that one. That's why I brought that one up more than anything else, rather than adults against adults. So I think you have to bear that very much in mind. You know, children are very susceptible and you don't know the social background. I actually would love to know the experiences this Eric had gone through to come up with that. It makes me wonder if there was he had authoritative issues growing up, whether he had a fear of starvation growing up, whether he had,
he kind of said that he had a fascination with Stephen King, and he'd based his basically depict, is that the word I want? Basically, he'd used the stories that he had done to create this character, and that's what he's based on. That's what he said. So whether there was other issues going on there, because if you love Stephen King, there's like, you got to be weirdos like Stephen King. Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
It kind of like makes me. It does make me wonder what other factors were incorporate in him creating that Slender Man in the first place. He'd be a great psychological study, I feel.
Definitely. Or he's just a man that decided one day he was going to do something and didn't realise the impact it would have on the world and how. I mean, Andy Mercer did say in the chat room that if only he copyrighted it.
Yeah.
You're really rich. So, I just think he woke up, because there is people out there that just think, well, I'm going to do this today, and then do it. And that's what he's done it for. I mean, the great photoshopping skills, really. They are really good.
Well, I mean, whenever I've sort of created artwork and stuff for like Living Paranormal and so on, it's usually I'm just thinking, what's going to look messed up but also kind of cool at the same time. So there's no. So I mean, I don't know. Is there a reason why I'm choosing these like skulls and things like that? I just think they look cool. Maybe that's what it was. I designed Slender Man. It looks kind of cool. He's got a nice suit on. He's got no face. That will freak some people out.
Okay. I'll tell you a story from when my daughter was younger. The most horrific nightmare she ever had. We were visiting family, not in this country, it was in another country, and she was in a room that she didn't know, and she'd gone to sleep and woke up screaming, and when I come in, she had dreamt of a little girl with black hair and no face, and it absolutely petrified her, the fact that she had no face, and to this day she still talks about that nightmare, and this was easily 10 years ago that she had this nightmare. So I think the no face factor plays a massive part in the fear.
One of the like sort of freakiest spirits that Helena has ever described of seeing to me is of a spirit with no face.
But isn't that lack of identity? Just that we. As humans, it's not knowing what that person is. Why can't you see that person's face? What's behind the sheet? But it's also from a child. One of the very first patterns we recognise is the face, and that's why people see it so often in pictures of like apparent evidence, and it's not. Exactly. Yeah, pareidolia. That's where pareidolia comes from, because you're taught. Well, it's not taught, is it? It's not taught. It's an inbuilt thing, that we recognise faces, and it's evolution, I suppose you could say. It's that thing, isn't it? That thing that we recognise a face, and we also, as adults, you learn so much of people's emotions, of what they're thinking, from their facial expressions and how they say things and stuff like that. So if you take that away, you haven't got a face. Yeah, you've lost so much information, and that is a huge thing, isn't it? It becomes unidentifiable. You can't relate to it because your whole body, your whole way of thinking is based on looking at someone's face and gaining so much knowledge from their expressions, and it goes against everything that your innate instinct is telling you. So that's why it creates such a fear. And and no matter what, you can't run away from Slender Man either. So that's like the other inbuilt thing, the fight or flight. You can't do either. No. You can't run away from him. You can't fight him. You're just gonna have to sort of, go along with it and see what happens. Roll with it.
Yeah, no, you see, I agree with everything. I do agree with that, with the lack of face and the because it is an innate instinct, the fight or flight. And if you can't do either, you just go into the fetal position. Yeah. I think that's what I'll do if ever there was a zombie apocalypse, you know.
What, go into the fetal position?
I've got a plan for that. So.
No, I'd rock that situation. I'm telling you now.
I know where my local. I know. If anyone from America listening won't understand this, I know where my nearest gun shop is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only one that I know of within a 50-mile radius.
Yep. I'm with you,
I know
Alex.
where my nearest one is.
And I have my very own Lucille, and I've got my very own Lucille too.
If you know what, if you've ever watched, not the most recent Jurassic Park, but the one before that, the one that's not the one that's coming out now, the one that came out about a year ago. There's a scene in it where the guy just sits on the floor and he just looks at his mate as if to say, "Oh God," and the dinosaur just eats him. That's going to be me.
I'm in Alex's.
That's me.
I'm in Alex's gang. Is all I'm going to say.
Just get this over and done with.
I've even got a bug out bag in the car just in case.
I've not gone that far. All I can say is I know what would be in my bug out bag.
It's not crazy, okay? It's not crazy. If I was crazy, I would think Slender Man was real. That's kind of I should have said that.
You know what? That's the first. I was like, oh.
That's not very PC, is it? Oh well, no. we're all going to hell.
But I like the fact that you've already put so much thought into this process, right? This is just a casual comment that I was throwing out there. You've got a backup plan, you've got a pack, and you've got a defence as well when someone says, "Why have you done that?" I'm not crazy. You had it all ready for us. So, what a way to end the show.
There are people in America who are called. What are they called? I can't think of the actual wording, but they're basically planners, apocalypse planners.
Yeah.
And there are people in America who have built forts out of metal containers and things like that. And they're stockpiling food and things like that because they want to be prepared. They're called preppers. That's it.
That's it. Preppers. Yeah.
And I'm watching it thinking that's a good idea. I could do that.
Not in the UK.
I'm not saying something's definitely going to happen. It's just nice to be relaxed in case something does happen. You know what I mean?
Well, at least we know, Kel.
Oh, mate, I tell you, I'm in his gang. I tell you, me and Alex, we're going to rock the zombie apocalypse together.
I've even got a plan for. In the future, I'm going to buy a plot of land, get a flat pack house, have solar paneling, grow my own vegetables.
Complete sustainability, great big walls.
Recycle water. I want to be self-sufficient, basically. That is my dream place to live.
Big walls.
And hopefully that will happen in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mate.
And Slender Man can suck it.
And that's when you find out Slender Man is actually real.
And it's living on the land that you're going to be buying. It's going to happen to you in the land right now. How do you like these apples?
If I was to meet Slender Man, I'd be like, well, I can't run away because he'll find me. I can't fight him because he's probably indestructible.
So,
I'm quite sure I could go under his legs. But if Slender Man was real, if I happened to bump into him, I would just be like, all right, just take me because I can't get away from you. So if you take me, I'll just do your bidding for you, whatever. And
black-eyed Alex.
Basically, there's going to be a black-eyed man running around who's chubby, has a beard, and doesn't know when to shut up.
Well, what a finale.
And my advice is, if you do see Slender Man, just give in because there's no point in fighting it. But don't kill anyone.
Fetal position. Told ya. The way of the world. It's the inevitable.
Jesus.
Hopefully he will just have so much pity on you and feel so sorry for you that he'll just leave you.
Or I go, she look like someone that needs a hug.
I wouldn't want to hug. Imagine how bony that hug would be from Slender Man.
Yeah.
I feel like
Kerry's like, how did we get here? How did we get here?
There's some other things. I want to see Slender Man with an afro.
What? Oh, here we've gone right into crazies now.
Brightly
When he
coloured.
takes off his bowler hat.
Take the edge of him. One of those brightly coloured clown wigs, and no face still, but a red nose.
Oh wow!
We're crossing dimensions now.
Completely.
Crossing dimensions.
Anyway, it is now 10 o'clock. We have come to the end of our show. There is a competition that's running with Parasearch Radio. Kerry, would you be able to tell us about the competition?
Yeah, the competition is for 3 back issues of Haunted magazine, donated. Very, very lovely. Paul Stevenson has donated those. If you want to enter, go over to the Parasearch Radio group page. Just enter your name. Underneath, you have to be a liker of the page, obviously. To enter, that it gets drawn. I don't know. When she say, when did it get drawn? I don't know. But check all the T&Cs. You'll find out all the information on there. Don't forget, we are also on YouTube, so if you miss any of our shows, you can go over there, click like, share and subscribe, and you will get a notification of when the next show goes live, so you can have a little listen on playback.
Perfect. So thank you everyone that has joined us. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining me on my first show back. It has been a fun one. I'm glad this is the topic we chose to talk about, and I'm glad that I had you both as my co-hosts for this evening.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me on, and I apologise.
And thank you for letting me interject at various times.
I've had great fun. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and thank you so much for my listeners to this evening. I will be back next Friday, Kerry. I will be here next Friday. And I will be posting my event a little bit earlier than what I did this week, so you get more time and more notice. So again, join us in the chat room and do all the stuff that Kerry said to do as well, because that sounds fun. So thank you very much, and I'm going to say good night to all our listeners. Thank you. Night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.